She accidentally shared room with Mysterious Cold Billionaire. What happened next changed everything. Before we start the story, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Chloe Martinez stood outside the luxury apartment building on Fifth Avenue, clutching the rental confirmation email like her life depended on it. The 24-year-old freelance interior designer had been living in a cramped studio for 3 years, saving every penny from her struggling design consultancy. When she finally found what seemed like an affordable one-bedroom rental online, she thought it was too good to be true. Turns out, she was right. "Penthouse level, apartment 4501, she muttered, reading the email for the 100th time. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. The penthouse hallway was a marble wonderland that screamed wealth. Chloe's worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor as she approached the door. Her key slid in perfectly, and she pushed open the door expecting to see a modest one-bedroom apartment. Instead, she walked into what looked like a luxury brand showroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Central Park. The living room alone was bigger than her entire previous apartment. A kitchen island made of black granite stretched across what she could only describe as a culinary palace. Everything from the custom lighting to the abstract art on the walls screamed exclusive taste and serious investment portfolio money. "What the actual hell?" Chloe whispered, dropping her single duffel bag with a thud that echoed through the space. She pulled out her phone and dialed the rental agency with shaking fingers. "Sterling Properties, this is Janet speaking." "Hi, this is Chloe Martinez. I think there's been some kind of mistake with my apartment rental. The confirmation says 4501, but this place looks like it belongs to someone who owns a yacht or something." Janet's typing could be heard through the phone. "Let me check. Oh my goodness. Miss Martinez, I'm so sorry. There's been a system error. Your actual rental is 4051, 4 floors down. This apartment belongs to Mr. Ethan Stone." Chloe felt her stomach drop. "Ethan Stone? As in Stone Aviation, the private jet company?" "The very same. He's been traveling for a merger acquisition in Tokyo for the past month. Please gather your belongings immediately and—" The line went dead as Chloe heard the unmistakable sound of a key in the front door. "Shit, shit, shit," she whispered, grabbing her bag and looking around frantically for somewhere to hide. But it was too late. The door swung open, and in walked a man who looked like he'd stepped off the cover of Forbes magazine. Tall, broad shoulders filling out an expensive charcoal suit. Dark hair slightly messy from travel. His steel-gray eyes scanned the room and landed directly on Chloe. Ethan Stone stood frozen in his own doorway, briefcase in hand, staring at the strange woman clutching a duffel bag in his living room. "Well," he said, his voice deep and surprisingly calm, "this is unexpected." Chloe's mind raced through possible explanations, but her mouth seemed to have other plans. "I can explain," she blurted out, then immediately followed with, "Actually, no, I can't really explain this without sounding like a complete lunatic." Ethan slowly closed the door behind him and set down his briefcase. His expression was unreadable, but Chloe noticed he didn't seem panicked or angry. More curious. "Are you here to rob me?" he asked, and there was the slightest hint of amusement in his voice. "Because I have to say you're either very bad at it or very good at looking innocent." "I'm not a robber," Chloe protested. "I'm a designer. Well, trying to be. Your rental agency had a system error and gave me keys to the wrong apartment. I literally just got here 5 minutes ago and realized this place is way too nice for someone who eats ramen for dinner 4 nights a week." Ethan's lips twitched into what might have been a smile. "You eat ramen 4 nights a week." "Sometimes 5, but that's not the point." Chloe felt her cheeks burning. "The point is, I'll leave right now. I just need to call Sterling Properties back and get the right keys." "Sterling Properties." Ethan repeated slowly. My property management company. Your property management company? I own it. Chloe stared at him. Of course he did. Because why would anything in her life be simple? So you're telling me, she said, that your own company accidentally gave me keys to your penthouse? Apparently so. Ethan loosened his tie and walked toward the kitchen. When did you call them? About 30 seconds before you walked in. They told me to gather my belongings immediately, and then you showed up like some kind of billionaire ninja. This time he definitely smiled. Billionaire ninja? You're very quiet for someone wearing expensive shoes. Ethan glanced down at his Italian leather dress shoes, then back at her worn sneakers. And you're very articulate for someone who just broke into my apartment. I didn't break in, I had keys. Chloe waved the keys in the air as evidence. Fair point. He opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water. Want one? You look like you might faint. I don't faint, Chloe said indignantly, then realized she was still clutching her duffel bag like a shield. But yes, water would be good. He tossed her a bottle, and she caught it awkwardly, nearly dropping her bag in the process. So, Ethan said, leaning against the kitchen island, Chloe Martinez, freelance designer who eats too much ramen. What exactly were you expecting to rent for? Let me guess. Under $2,000 a month. Chloe nearly choked on her water. How did you know? Lucky guess. What's your actual budget? Why do you want to know? Because I'm trying to figure out how spectacular this mix-up really is. Chloe hesitated. She'd learned not to share financial information with strangers, especially wealthy ones who might judge her situation. But something about Ethan's direct approach made lying seem pointless. $1,500, she admitted, including utilities. Ethan was quiet for a moment. This place rents for $25,000 a month. 25? Chloe sat down hard on the nearest bar stool. Oh my God, I can't afford to breathe the air in here. The air is included in the rent. Despite everything, Chloe laughed. Are you making jokes right now? I'm trying to figure out if you're real, Ethan said honestly. I've been in acquisition meetings for 12 hours, flew back from Tokyo, and walked into my apartment to find someone who looks like she belongs in a coffee shop telling me she eats ramen and can't afford my air. I do belong in a coffee shop, Chloe said. That's where I do most of my design work because my real apartment doesn't have good lighting. Ethan studied her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Show me. Show you what? Your design work. Chloe blinked at him. You want to see my portfolio? Right now? In your living room after I accidentally broke into your apartment. You didn't break in, you had keys, Ethan reminded her. And yes, I'm curious. This is insane, Chloe muttered, but she was already reaching for her laptop bag. You know what? Fine. But I'm warning you, my work isn't luxury penthouse level. I mostly do small apartments and coffee shops. Coffee shops, Ethan repeated thoughtfully. Chloe set her laptop on the kitchen island and opened her portfolio website. This is my latest project, a small cafe in Brooklyn called Morning Ritual. Ethan moved closer to look at the screen, and Chloe caught a hint of expensive cologne mixed with something that might have been jet lag and determination. His presence was distracting in a way that made her fumble with the trackpad. The owner had a tiny budget and a weird layout, she explained, trying to focus on her work instead of the way Ethan was studying each photo with genuine interest. The space was long and narrow, terrible lighting, and the previous tenant had painted everything this awful beige color. What did you do? Chloe clicked through the before and after photos. Strategic mirror placement to make it feel wider, painted one accent wall dark blue to create depth, added pendant lighting that was affordable but looked custom, and designed modular seating that could be rearranged for different crowd sizes. Smart, Ethan murmured, leaning closer to examine a detail shot. You maximize functionality without sacrificing aesthetic appeal. Chloe glanced at him in surprise. You actually understand design? I understand space optimization and cost-effective solutions, he said. My business involves a lot of both. Private jets? Among other things. Ethan continued scrolling through her portfolio. This restaurant design is impressive. How did you make such a small kitchen feel so open? Removed the wall between the kitchen and dining area, added a pass-through window, and used the same flooring throughout to create visual continuity. Chloe found herself relaxing as she talked about her work. The owner was worried about cooking smells, but I convinced him that in a small restaurant, seeing the kitchen actually makes people feel more connected to their food. And this? Ethan stopped on a photo of a tiny apartment that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. My friend Sarah's studio. 400 square feet, no storage, and a bathroom the size of a closet. I built custom storage solutions that doubled as room dividers, created a Murphy bed that looked like a bookshelf when folded up, and used light colors and mirrors to make everything feel bigger. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, studying the images. How long did that take you? 3 weeks of planning, 2 weeks of execution. I did most of the work myself to keep costs down. You built the storage solutions yourself? YouTube University, Chloe said with a grin. Amazing what you can learn when you can't afford to hire professionals. Ethan looked at her with something that might have been respect. And your rate? For that project? She paid for materials and bought me pizza for 2 weeks. Pizza? Ethan repeated flatly. Really good pizza, Chloe defended. And she's my friend. I don't charge friends full rate. What's your full rate? Chloe hesitated. Her rates were embarrassingly low compared to established designers, but they were all she could charge while building her reputation. $50 an hour for consultations, flat project fees negotiated based on scope and budget. Ethan was quiet for so long that Chloe started to worry she'd said something wrong. What? She asked. You're severely undercharging. I'm building my client base. I can't charge luxury rates when I don't have luxury experience. This work, Ethan gestured to her laptop screen, is better than what some high-end designers charge 10 times your rate for. Chloe felt heat rise in her cheeks. You're just being nice. I'm never just nice, Ethan said seriously. I don't give compliments I don't mean, especially about business. The way he said it made Chloe believe him. There was something about Ethan Stone that suggested he didn't waste time on pleasantries or empty flattery. Her phone rang, interrupting the moment. The caller ID showed sterling properties. I should probably take this, she said reluctantly. Chloe Martinez speaking. Miss Martinez, this is Janet again. I'm terribly sorry about the mix-up. We have your correct keys ready for pickup, and we're prepared to offer a discount on your first month's rent as an apology. Chloe glanced at Ethan, who was listening to her half of the conversation with interest. What's the apartment like? She asked. It's a cozy studio on the 4th floor, recently renovated, great natural light. Natural light is good, Chloe said, though after seeing Ethan's floor-to-ceiling windows, she suspected the rental agency's definition of great natural light might be optimistic. Can you come by first thing in the morning to pick up the keys? Actually, Ethan interrupted, that won't be necessary. Chloe looked at him in confusion, and he gestured for her to put the call on speaker. Janet, this is Ethan Stone. Mr. Stone, I'm so sorry about this mix-up. We'll have everything sorted immediately. I'm sure you will, but I have a different solution in mind. Chloe stared at Ethan with growing alarm. What kind of solution? Miss Martinez will be staying here temporarily, Ethan told Janet calmly. I will not, Chloe protested. forgetting that she was on speaker with his employee. The apartment mix-up was significant enough to cause considerable inconvenience, Ethan continued as if Chloe hadn't spoken. The least we can do is provide proper accommodation while we sort out long-term arrangements. Of course, Mr. Stone, Janet replied quickly. Whatever you think is best. I'll be in touch tomorrow about the details. Thank you, Janet. He ended the call before Chloe could object further. Are you insane? She demanded. I cannot stay in your apartment. Why not? Because, Chloe gestured wildly at the luxurious space around them. Because this is crazy. I don't even know you. You could be a serial killer. Serial killers don't usually own aviation companies, Ethan pointed out reasonably. How do you know? Maybe that's just your cover. My cover for what? Murdering interior designers? I don't know your life. Ethan almost smiled. Fair point. But consider this. You need a place to stay. I have plenty of space, and I travel frequently for business. This apartment sits empty more than it's occupied. That's not the point, Chloe said, though she wasn't entirely sure what the point was anymore. What is the point? The point is that normal people don't invite strangers to live in their penthouse apartments. I'm not normal people. Obviously. They stared at each other for a moment, and Chloe realized this was the most surreal conversation of her life. Look, she said, trying to sound reasonable, I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept charity from someone I just met. It's not charity. Then what is it? Ethan was quiet for a moment, and Chloe got the impression he was weighing his words carefully. I have a proposition, he said, finally. Oh God, here it comes. It's a business proposition, he clarified quickly. Uh-huh. I'm serious. I've been looking for someone to redesign several properties in my portfolio. Hotels, restaurants, some residential spaces. The designers I've worked with before are... He paused, searching for the right words. Expensive? Chloe suggested. Predictable. They all have the same aesthetic, the same approach. Everything ends up looking like a showroom instead of a place where people actually want to spend time. Despite her skepticism, Chloe found herself intrigued. What kind of properties? A boutique hotel in Soho that's been struggling with occupancy rates. The design is technically beautiful, but completely impersonal. A tech startup office that looks like every other tech startup office. A few restaurant spaces that feel more like investment opportunities than places people want to eat. And you think I can fix that? I think you understand how to make spaces feel welcoming without breaking the budget. That's a rare skill. Chloe studied his face, trying to figure out if he was serious or just felt sorry for her. What exactly are you proposing? Stay here temporarily while you work on my projects. Consider it an extended working interview. If the collaboration works out, we can discuss a long-term consulting arrangement. If not, you'll have had time to find proper housing and earned enough to upgrade your ramen budget. It was a crazy offer from a stranger who owned private jets and probably had more money in his checking account than she'd see in her lifetime. Every rational instinct told her to politely decline and get the hell out of there. How do I know you're not completely insane? She asked. You don't, Ethan admitted. But you know I'm not broke, and you've seen that I don't live in squalor. Those are probably good signs. This is not how normal business relationships start. I don't have normal business relationships. Why not? Ethan considered the question seriously. Because normal business relationships produce normal results. I'm not interested in normal results. Despite every warning bell in her head, Chloe found his honesty compelling. There was something about Ethan Stone that suggested he didn't waste time on games or hidden agendas. He seemed to say exactly what he meant, even when what he meant was completely unconventional. If I agreed to this insane arrangement, she said slowly, what would be the ground rules? Such as? Such as, I'm not sleeping with you just because you're letting me stay here. Ethan looked genuinely surprised. I wasn't expecting you to. Good. What else? I travel frequently, so you'd have the place to yourself most of the time. When I'm here, we're both adults who can share common spaces respectfully. What about bringing people over? Friends, yes. Romantic interests. Ethan paused. I'd prefer advance notice. Same goes for you. Fair enough. Chloe realized she was actually considering this ridiculous proposal. Maybe it was the stress of apartment hunting, or maybe it was the way Ethan had looked at her portfolio with genuine interest instead of condescending pity. And if the work arrangement doesn't pan out, she asked, then you'll have had a few weeks to find something permanent, plus payment for whatever work you do complete. Payment at actual professional rates, not ramen budget rates? I'll pay you what good design work is worth, not what you think you can get away with charging. Chloe took a deep breath. This is completely crazy. Probably. I could be a terrible roommate. I might leave dishes in the sink, or hog the bathroom, or play music too loud. I might work late and take conference calls at odd hours. I definitely travel at short notice. I talk to myself when I'm designing. I talk to myself when I'm reviewing financial reports. Despite herself, Chloe smiled. We both might be slightly insane. That's what might make this work. 3 hours later, Chloe found herself unpacking her single duffel bag in what Ethan had described as the guest suite. The guest suite was larger than her previous apartment and came with its own bathroom, walk-in closet, and a view of the city that probably cost more per month than her annual income. Ethan had disappeared into what he called his office, a sleek space filled with multiple monitors and the kind of technology setup that looked like mission control for a space program. The muffled sound of his voice suggested he was on a conference call with someone in a different time zone. Chloe sat on the enormous bed and tried to process what she'd just agreed to. By any reasonable standard, she'd lost her mind. She was going to live temporarily in a billionaire's penthouse and redesign his properties based on a portfolio review and 3 hours of conversation. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Sarah. How's the new apartment? Send pics. Chloe looked around the guest suite and realized she had no idea how to explain the situation. It's bigger than expected, she texted back. Good bigger or scary bigger? I honestly don't know yet. She decided to explore her temporary home while Ethan was busy. The kitchen alone was a designer's dream. High-end appliances, beautiful stone counters, and enough storage space for someone who actually knew how to cook. The living area flowed seamlessly into a dining space that looked like it had never been used for actual dining. That was when she noticed it. Despite the obvious expense and impeccable taste, the apartment felt oddly impersonal. It was beautiful in the way hotel suites were beautiful, perfect, pristine, and completely lacking in personality. There were no photos, no books lying around, no indication that anyone actually lived here rather than just occasionally stayed here. Even the art on the walls looked like it had been chosen by a professional decorator rather than by someone with personal taste. It was exactly the kind of space Ethan had described wanting to fix in his business properties. Technically perfect, but emotionally cold. Finding everything okay? Ethan's voice came from behind her. Chloe turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, having traded his business suit for dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look almost silver. Your apartment is beautiful, she said honestly. But how did you know there was a but? Your tone suggested one. Chloe hesitated. She'd been living here for exactly 3 hours, and she was about to critique her temporary landlord's personal space. It doesn't feel like you, she said carefully. What's that supposed to mean? It feels like a showroom. Beautiful, but not lived in. Ethan looked around as if seeing the space through her eyes. It was professionally decorated when I bought it. And you never changed anything? I'm not here often enough to care about changing it. But when you are here, don't you want it to feel like home rather than a hotel? Ethan was quiet for a moment, considering her question. I'm not sure I know what home is supposed to feel like. The admission was so honest and unexpected that Chloe felt something twist in her chest. She'd grown up in a tiny apartment with her grandmother, surrounded by mismatched furniture and family photos, and the kind of comfortable clutter that comes from actually living in a space. The idea that someone could own this beautiful apartment and not know how to make it feel like home struck her as deeply sad. Well, she said, maybe we can figure that out while I'm here. Is that part of your professional services? That's part of being human. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, and Chloe wondered if she'd overstepped. But then he smiled, a real smile, not the polite professional version she'd seen earlier. Are you hungry? He asked. I was about to order dinner. Starving, Chloe admitted. But I should warn you, I'm not used to expensive food. My palate is pretty much calibrated to take out and whatever I can make with 5 ingredients or fewer. I was thinking Thai food from the place downstairs. Thai food sounds perfect. Good. And Chloe? Yeah. Thank you. For what? For agreeing to this insane arrangement. Chloe grinned. Thank you for making the insane offer. As Ethan called in their dinner order, Chloe realized that for the first time in months, she wasn't worried about rent money or grocery budgets or whether her latest client would actually pay their invoice. Instead, she was thinking about how to make a beautiful space feel like a home and wondering what other surprises Ethan Stone might have in store. Chloe woke up in the most comfortable bed she'd ever slept in, momentarily disoriented by the lack of traffic noise and her neighbor's early morning television routine. Sunlight streamed through windows that were definitely not the tiny north-facing window of her old apartment. Right. She was living in a penthouse with a billionaire stranger who owned private jets and wanted her to redesign his business properties. That was definitely her life now. The apartment was quiet, so she assumed Ethan was either still sleeping or already gone. She padded to the kitchen in her pajamas, old yoga pants and a college sweatshirt that had seen better days, and tried to figure out how to operate the coffee machine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Good morning. Chloe jumped and spun around to find Ethan sitting at the kitchen island with a laptop, a cup of coffee, and what looked like financial reports spread across the surface. He was dressed for business in a navy suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his shoulders. Morning, she managed, suddenly very aware that her hair was doing things that defied physics, and her sweatshirt had a small hole near the left shoulder. Coffee? He asked, gesturing toward the intimidating machine. Please. But I should probably warn you, I haven't figured out how that thing works yet. Ethan got up and approached the coffee machine with the confidence of someone who'd mastered more complicated technology. Preference? Anything with caffeine. Specific type? Chloe stared at him. There are types? Espresso, cappuccino, latte, Americano. Oh, whatever you're having is fine. Ethan's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. I'm having espresso. Then I'm having espresso. He pressed a few buttons, and the machine hummed to life with the kind of precision that suggested it was probably smarter than most people. So, Chloe said, trying to ignore how domestic this felt, you're up early. Conference call with London in 20 minutes, Ethan replied, handing her a small cup of coffee that smelled like heaven. You? I'm always up early. Old habit from working multiple jobs. Multiple jobs? Design work doesn't pay consistently when you're starting out, Chloe explained, taking a sip of coffee that was definitely the best she'd ever tasted. So I waited tables at night did freelance graphic design, sometimes helped with event setup on weekends. Waited tables, Ethan repeated thoughtfully. Don't look so surprised. Not everyone gets to start at the top of the investment portfolio ladder. I didn't start at the top. Something in his tone made Chloe look at him more carefully. No. My first job was washing dishes at a hotel restaurant. 60 hours a week for minimum wage. Chloe nearly choked on her espresso. You washed dishes. For 2 years. Worked my way up to prep. Cook, then server, then front desk, then assistant manager. By the time I was 25, I understood every aspect of hotel operations. And now you own hotels. Among other things, Ethan confirmed. The point is, I understand what it's like to work multiple jobs to pay rent. Then why do you live like this? Chloe gestured around the luxurious kitchen. Because I can afford to now. But doesn't it feel weird, going from washing dishes to... She waved her hand vaguely at the penthouse around them. Ethan considered the question seriously. Sometimes, but mostly it feels like proof that working 60-hour weeks and saving every penny was worth it. Is that why you don't have any personal stuff here? Because it doesn't feel real? I have personal stuff. Where? Ethan looked around as if taking inventory. My office has personal items. Business awards don't count as personal items. Who said anything about business awards? Chloe raised an eyebrow. What else would you have in there? Instead of answering, Ethan walked toward his office and returned with a small frame photo, which he set on the kitchen island between them. The photo showed a much younger Ethan with an elderly woman who was smiling at the camera while he looked down at her with obvious affection. Your grandmother? Chloe guessed. She raised me after my parents died, Ethan said simply. Taught me that work was dignity, but family was everything. She looks like she was amazing. She was. She died 3 years ago. Left me a shoebox full of photos and her recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Do you make the cookies? I've never tried. I'm not much of a baker. Chloe studied the photo, then looked around the sterile kitchen. She wouldn't like this apartment, would she? Ethan followed her gaze. She'd say it was too clean to be a real home. Smart woman. The smartest. Ethan picked up the photo and looked at it for a moment before meeting Chloe's eyes. She would have liked you. How do you know? She always said the best people were the ones who worked hard, but still knew how to laugh. Chloe felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the excellent espresso. I like her already. Ethan's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with a slight frown. London's calling early. Go ahead, Chloe said. I'll figure out breakfast. There's not much food here, Ethan warned. I'm resourceful. He hesitated for a moment, then said, The grocery delivery password is on the refrigerator. Order whatever you want. Ethan. Yeah? Thank you. For the coffee and for... She gestured at the photo. For sharing that. Thank you for asking. As Ethan disappeared into his office for his conference call, Chloe looked around the kitchen with new eyes. It wasn't just impersonal. It was lonely, beautiful, expensive, and completely lacking the kind of warmth that turned a space into a home. She pulled out her phone and started making a grocery list. If she was going to be staying here temporarily, she might as well stock the kitchen with ingredients that would make the place smell like someone actually lived there, starting with chocolate chip cookies. 2 days later, Chloe found herself standing in the lobby of the Meridian Hotel in Soho, holding a tablet full of notes and trying to figure out why a technically beautiful space felt so unwelcoming. The Meridian was exactly as Ethan had described, gorgeous in a sterile showroom way. The lobby featured expensive marble, designer furniture, and art that probably cost more than most people's cars. Everything was perfectly coordinated and completely soulless. The occupancy rate is 63%, Ethan said, joining her near the front desk. Industry average for this area is 85%. I can see why, Chloe murmured, making notes on her tablet. It's beautiful, but it feels like a bank lobby. The previous designer won several awards for this space. Awards don't make people want to stay here. Ethan looked around with the expression of someone seeing familiar surroundings through fresh eyes. What would you change? Everything, Chloe said immediately, then caught herself. I mean, not everything. The bones are good, but the soul is missing. Explain soul to me in business terms. Chloe grinned. Soul is what makes people choose this hotel over the equally expensive one down the street. It's what makes them post photos on social media and tell their friends about their amazing stay. Soul is profitable. Show me. For the next hour, Chloe walked Ethan through the space, pointing out specific changes that would transform the hotel's atmosphere without requiring a complete renovation. The lighting is too harsh, she explained, standing in the seating area. People look tired and washed out under these bulbs. Warmer lighting would make everyone look better, which makes them feel better about being here. Simple change. Very simple. Same fixtures, different bulbs. Maybe add some table lamps for ambiance. What else? The furniture arrangement is all wrong. Everything's pushed against the walls like a middle school dance. People want to feel like they're part of the energy, not sitting in observation mode. Chloe pulled out her phone and showed Ethan some photos from her portfolio. See how I arranged the seating in this coffee shop? Intimate groupings, some facing each other, some with views of the street. People naturally gravitate toward spaces that feel social. And that affects occupancy how? Happy guests in the lobby create atmosphere. Other guests see people enjoying themselves and think, this is the kind of place I want to stay. It's psychological. Ethan nodded slowly. Continue. The art is expensive, but generic. Hotel art should tell a story about the location, create a sense of place. This could be any luxury hotel anywhere in the world. What would you suggest? Local artists, pieces that reflect Soho's creative energy. Photography of the neighborhood, abstract pieces inspired by the architecture. Maybe some vintage pieces that reference the area's history. More expensive than what's here now. Actually, probably less expensive and infinitely more interesting. Supporting local artists is also good for public relations. They spent another hour going through Chloe's suggestions, adding plants to soften the hard edges, creating a coffee station that felt like a neighborhood cafe rather than a corporate break room, rearranging the front desk area to feel more welcoming and less like airport security. Timeline? Ethan asked as they concluded the walkthrough. For these changes? 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we're careful about sourcing local art. Budget? Chloe had been dreading this question. Her instinct was to lowball the estimate to make sure she got the job, but Ethan's earlier comment about undercharging herself echoed in her mind. Honestly, about $40,000 for everything I've suggested, including my fee. Ethan didn't flinch. Previous designer quoted $120,000 for a refresh. For what exactly? New furniture, new art, new lighting fixtures, new flooring. All of which would look exactly like every other luxury hotel, Chloe said. You'd spend 3 times as much to get the same result you have now. And your approach would work? Your current approach isn't working, Chloe pointed out. What do you have to lose by trying something different? Ethan was quiet for a moment, and Chloe wondered if she'd been too direct. But then he smiled. Good point. When can you start? You're serious? I'm always serious about business. Chloe felt excitement bubble up in her chest. I can start immediately. I'll need a few days to source materials and coordinate with local artists, but I can have preliminary plans to you by tomorrow." "Done." As they walked back toward the hotel exit, Chloe realized this was the first time in her career that a client had said yes without trying to negotiate her down or asking for 3 rounds of revisions before committing. "Ethan?" "Yeah." "Why are you trusting me with this? You've seen my portfolio, but this is a big project." Ethan stopped walking and looked at her seriously. "Because in 3 days of knowing you, you've made me think differently about spaces I see every day. That's exactly what my businesses need. And if I screw it up, then we'll figure out how to fix it." The simple confidence in his voice made Chloe's chest tight with something that felt dangerously like affection. "Besides," Ethan added, "you made chocolate chip cookies from my grandmother's recipe last night. Anyone who can decode her handwriting and produce cookies that actually taste like hers can probably handle hotel design. You ate like 6 of them. They were perfect. She had terrible handwriting, by the way. I had to guess on half the measurements. Good instincts, then." As they stepped onto the Soho street, Chloe realized that for the first time in her career, she felt like a real designer rather than someone pretending to be one until she figured out what she was actually doing. "So," she said, "where's the next project?" 3 weeks later, Chloe stood in the transformed Meridian Hotel lobby, watching guests actually use the seating areas instead of hurrying through to the elevators. The changes had been subtle but transformative. Warmer lighting that made everyone look better, furniture arranged in intimate conversation groupings, local artwork that gave the space personality, and plants that softened the harsh architectural lines. "Occupancy is up to 79%, Ethan said, joining her with 2 cups of coffee from the new neighborhood-style coffee station. "Bookings for next month are already at 86%. "Really?" Chloe tried to keep her voice casual, but she couldn't hide her excitement. "Really. The online reviews have completely changed. People are posting photos of the lobby and talking about the warm, authentic Soho atmosphere. That's amazing." "You're amazing?" Chloe felt heat rise in her cheeks. Over the past 3 weeks, she and Ethan had fallen into an easy routine of working together during the day and sharing dinners at the penthouse in the evening. The professional boundaries had started to blur in ways that probably weren't wise, but Chloe found herself looking forward to their conversations more than she should. "So," she said, trying to redirect the conversation to safer territory, "what's the next project?" "About that," Ethan said, and something in his tone made her look at him more carefully. "I have a proposition." "Another business proposition?" "Personal proposition." Chloe's heart did something irregular. "Oh, my company is hosting a merger acquisition dinner tomorrow night. High-profile clients, potential investors, the kind of event where appearances matter." "Okay. I need a date." The words hung in the air between them, and Chloe felt her brain short-circuit slightly. "A date," she repeated carefully. "The problem with being a single billionaire," Ethan said with a slight smile, "is that everyone assumes you're either gay, secretly married, or completely antisocial, none of which are great for business relationships. So you need a fake girlfriend. I need someone I actually enjoy spending time with, to accompany me to an event where I'll be surrounded by people I mostly don't enjoy spending time with." That's not exactly a ringing romantic endorsement. "It's not supposed to be romantic," Ethan said, though his eyes suggested otherwise. "It's supposed to be practical." Chloe studied his face, trying to figure out what he wasn't saying. "What's the dress code for this practical arrangement?" "Formal, black tie." "I don't own anything that qualifies as formal black tie attire." "That's easily solved." "Ethan." "What? Are you sure this is a good idea? Mixing business and whatever this would be?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was more serious than she'd heard it before. "Honestly, I'm not sure it's a good idea at all, but I'm sure I want you there. The simple honesty of the statement did something dangerous to Chloe's resolve. Okay, she heard herself say, but I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. If you want me there, you get the real me, complete with inappropriate jokes and a tendency to say exactly what I'm thinking. I wouldn't want it any other way. Good, because I have a lot of thoughts about merger acquisition dinners, and most of them involve mocking the people who use the synergy, unironically. Ethan laughed, and the sound made Chloe's stomach flutter in ways that definitely violated the boundaries of their arrangement. What have I gotten myself into? He murmured. Nothing you can't handle, Chloe said, though she wasn't entirely sure either of them knew what they were getting into. The next evening, Chloe stood in front of the full-length mirror in her guest suite, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than her previous monthly rent. Ethan had insisted on sending a personal shopper, and the result was a sleek, elegant gown that made her look like someone who belonged at high-end business events. She barely recognized herself. "Chloe?" Ethan's voice came from the living room. "Ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," she called back, taking one last look in the mirror. She found Ethan waiting by the elevator, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made her forget how to breathe for a moment. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread about successful, devastating men who owned private jets and probably had their own stock market ticker symbols. "You look," he started, then seemed to lose his words. "Like I belong at your fancy business dinner. Like you're going to be the most beautiful woman in the room." The compliment was delivered so matter-of-factly that it took Chloe a moment to process it. "Ethan, what?" "Nothing. Just thank you." "For what?" "For making me feel like I could belong in your world, even temporarily." Something shifted in Ethan's expression, something that looked almost like sadness. "Chloe?" "Yeah?" "You don't need to belong in my world. My world needs more people like you." The elevator arrived before Chloe could figure out how to respond to that. But as they descended toward the lobby, she realized that somewhere over the past month, this had stopped being about temporary arrangements and business propositions. She was falling for Ethan Stone, and judging by the way he was looking at her, the feeling might be mutual, which was either the best thing that had ever happened to her, or a complete disaster waiting to happen. Probably both. What did you think of Chloe's and Ethan's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one of our stories, and stick around to watch more heartfelt tales by clicking right here on the final screen.